Good evening and welcome to Lights on LA. I'm your host, Louise Gill. This evening with me, I am very, very fortunate and honored to introduce a gentleman I think who is well known to the entire Armenian community, somebody who is a longtime friend, a supporter of the Armenian genocide, former state assembly for the 44th district for 6 years, former mayor of La Cañada Flintridge, candidate for state senate, 25th district, someone who I believe will be our next senator for the state of California, Mr. Anthony Portantino. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Louise. You're very sweet to have me on the show again, and I love your optimism, so thank you.
No, I firmly believe it, sir. I mean, your command presence, your demeanor, the way you speak, your friendship, your honesty, your loyalty towards the community, not only towards Armenians.
Now you're going to make me blush.
Well, I'm being honest. For those little people that don't know, and those little people meaning the small variety of people that don't know you, let's talk a little bit about your background.
Well, you know, first of all, I have to say that one of the wonderful things about being in politics, being out there, is you get to meet great people, and you get to meet a lot of people, and that's the most fun for me. To me, it's the district that drives the political activism. It's not the Sacramento part. So I'm proud of my legislative record and the agenda that I had up there. I really do like this part of what I do the best.
The diversity and the different ethnic backgrounds.
And if you think about the San Gabriel Valley, it's one of the most diverse places in California. You know, obviously there's a very large Armenian American community, but it's diverse throughout the foothills. Large African American community, large Chinese American community, large Korean American community, large Latino community, and you get to meet a lot of great people on the trail. And for me, people always say, Anthony, why do you go to so many things? And I always say, people say, welcome. No one ever says, what are you doing here? They say, welcome. And I think that's something that I understand about good people out there, and a lot of other political figures don't necessarily have that same warmth and connection because they think, well, why should I go to that? I don't know them. Well, if you go, you'll
get to meet them.
You'll get to meet them. And so for me, that's the fun part of it. I call it the Easter egg hunt. You go out and you meet, you know, behind every door is a new adventure. And,
That's true.
And the other thing that happens is you learn a lot. I learned how to say Gyankalave. Learned how to say, you know, a number of Armenian phrases because you get to meet people. I've learned about cord blood stem cells from a young gentleman who had his leukemia cured because I talked to his mom. You know, one day I sat next to a gentleman who was a World War II fighter pilot.
Oh.
And I got to learn about all of the great planes that were used, the classic propeller planes that we had back then. And so you learn and you talk to people, and the second part of the job is you get to go to Sacramento and solve problems. And so it's exciting, and that's what drives me. So thank you for letting me come on the show.
After 6 years being an assembly member, why wanting to go into state senate?
Well, I think there's unfinished business. You know, we talk a lot about education in California.
And we are going to talk about that higher education.
We are going to talk about higher education, but you know, the education needs champions. Our children need a path to success, and so what drives me is to be that voice, not just from a rhetorical perspective, because we have a lot of people who talk. I think I walk, and I think
you do the walk and you do the talk.
You know, and I think that's what drives me. Is, you know, I don't have a tolerance for all the pomp and the circumstance. I just want to get things done and try to solve problems. And so that's why I want to go back, because I think my voice during my 6 years, people understood the perspective for accountable government, for higher education, for the foothill communities that made up my district, preserving open space, creating new park opportunities. I mean, all those things have driven me in public service, and I think I have more to share and more to do.
Let's talk a little bit about your district and what does it encompass, the areas.
Well, it is I refer to it as a foothill district. It starts in Sunland, Tehunga, goes through Burbank, Glendale, Montrose, La Crescenta, La Cañada, Altadena, Pasadena, South Pasadena, a little bit of the Hollywood Hills and the north part of Los Angeles. Then it goes into San Marino, Sierra Madre, Bradbury,
Wow.
Monrovia, Duarte, and then it goes into Glendora, Laverne, San Dimas, Claremont, and Upland. So it hugs
That's
the
a huge
210.
area.
It's a large area. There's 1 million people, almost 1 million people in the district, and as we said, very diverse, but also very common in its approach to
Common
life.
problems too?
Common problems, common opportunities, common dreams, I think is the most thing. The San Gabriel Valley has always been a place for upward mobility where people have moved out of the city
Right.
to get a piece of suburban life. Same thing with Glendale, Burbank, Sunland, Tahunga. People have moved out of LA, proper to get into the foothill communities. And so it's a lot of families that want a better life for their children, for their grandmas, for their next generation. And so I look at it as a district of hope, optimism, and opportunity. And I try to be that positive person who respects the community, but also understands it's why I moved to the foothills, why you moved to the foothills.
Exactly.
We want our communities to be a place for opportunity.
When we're talking about higher education, what are your plans for higher education, and what other goals do you have once being nominated and appointed as as state senate?
It's a shame I'm not appointed.
I know.
There's that little thing called the election. But when I was in the assembly, I was the chair of the higher education committee, and I was not at the time an educator. I came with a passion for higher education, and so I made my pitch to the assembly leadership that I wanted to chair higher education. I think, again, my perspective, the fact that I wasn't aligned with any faction, let me just focus on educating kids. And so I fell in love with the idea of being a champion for higher education. If you think about California, today's LA Times had an editorial about the UC system. It's at a crossroads. The master plan for higher education was created almost 60 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
And that's what created the 3 segments of higher education. Community colleges that have no minimum requirement, they take everyone. The Cal State system and the UC system were all created by the master plan. And California didn't anticipate the population growth at the time. The demand on that system 60 years ago today.
It's different.
And it's very different. And unfortunately, we haven't kept pace with the budgetary priorities. Within the context of the overall state budget, we haven't spent what we need to spend to maintain our 3 segments of higher education. At a point in time where higher education is even more critical because the economy has changed. I mean, we're a global high-tech economy. We're no longer a farming, manufacturing economy. And so our students demand better. And as you know, I mean, everybody wants to have that piece of the American dream, and the post-secondary education is part of it. Also, our K-12 systems are not training tomorrow's technical workers. And so where does that burden fall? It falls on the community colleges, which are now part of the post-secondary education. So if you want to work as a mechanic, you have to go to a community college to get that training. If you want to be a cosmetologist, you need to go to get that certificate. And so the burden is there, the students are there, we have to be equal to that. And again, with our largely immigrant population, community colleges are an affordable way for the path to a 4-year university as well. And so one of the things that I was known for during my time in the assembly was being a champion of community colleges. And again, looking at this district, we have GCC, LA Community College, PCC, Citrus, Mount Sac. All throughout the foothills, the community colleges are central to the mission of educating our students. And so, again, going back to why I want to do this is because I feel like I'm a huge champion of the community colleges. And frankly, I'm proud that many of the community college trustees throughout the district see that in me from a legitimate connection on the policy and are supporting me to go to the state senate because they know where my heart is. Now, I'm also a product of public education myself.
Right.
I'm the father of an eighth grader in a public school. My wife is the PTA president of my daughter's school, and my oldest daughter graduated from UC Santa Barbara after going through
Congratulations.
public school. So, we are the quintessential public school family.
Now, as far as, aside from higher education, what other goals do you have once?
Well,
in
I
State
think
Senate?
the tying higher education, K-12 education, the state budget issues, having a stable revenue source, stabilizing our economic plan for the future is a big piece of it, and having a plan to stimulate the economy through job growth. California needs 3 million bachelor's degrees to meet the attrition rate of those who are aging out of the workforce. So the economy, the state budget, and how that plugs into education is also, there's a synergy there, and that drives me. There's some acute health issues that I want to work on. Obviously, I set up California's umbilical cord blood collection program.
Right. I was going to mention that.
Where cord blood is collected and stored and helps cure leukemia and AIDS research. I want to go back and make sure that is properly and continues to get properly funded. I did a lot of work on HIV and AIDS in office and out of office. So the AIDS healthcare community is very supportive of my going back to Sacramento because of the work that I've done there. So I have discernible projects in mind. I'm again, as you know, and I got into a little trouble being a champion for accountability and transparency. There's a lot of my colleagues aren't necessarily embracing that. Some do, some don't. I love the ones that do, and so I want to continue to fight for an accountable, transparent public process.
I know that you have been very, very instrumental and very supportive of the Armenian genocide. Why?
Well, it's interesting. A couple things. My mom, and I've told you this before, growing up in New Jersey, my mom talked about the Armenian genocide. An Italian.
And that was very fascinating last time when
Yeah.
you said it, because people were calling me, they were like, Anthony Portantino, is he Armenian? And I said, no.
Yeah, no, my mom in New Jersey, who was an Italian single mom, traditional Italian stay-at-home mom, raised 4 of us, but she talked to us about the genocide. Now, I don't know if that had to do with Woodrow Wilson and New Jersey and part of her education growing up, an immigrant story, but she talked about it as a kid. When I first came to California, and in New Jersey, we had Armenian American friends. It was a subject that we knew about, growing up in a state. Now, New Jersey had a large population, but nothing like we have in California today. And so when I first came to California and I started to get active again, lo and behold, I'm running into activists who are Armenian Americans, and several of them were actually from New Jersey. And so all roads led back to New Jersey, and so the first several Armenian American activists that I met when I became politically active were Armenian Americans, and again took the kernel of education that my mom had taught us and started to learn more. And the more I learned, the more I used to say to my friends when I was in the legislature, Paul Krikorian, Greg Agassarian, and Joe Samiti, and I would say, how can I help? What do you need me to do to help? And so, I spent my time being supportive of the community, and consequently, again, as I said before, you go meet people and they say, welcome. And so the Armenian American community was very welcoming to me, and in turn, I got to, blossom as I learned more about the genocide, and was proud to walk this year on the march.
The 100th anniversary, the 100th centennial.
Yeah, the centennial celebration. I even trained to make sure I could do the 6 miles. And
you did.
And I did. And it was a solemn, important occasion, an important part of our contemporary history, recognizing and commemorating the atrocity of 100 years ago. And, talking to, again, in the state assembly, my friend Kacho Achajian, when he would talk about it, it wasn't words, it was tears, when he would refer to his family. when you have the relationships with people who have the real story, the personal story, it's not reading in a book. And so I've had the opportunity to share the stories of other public officials who have shared their own personal story. And so it's the right thing to do. The community has welcomed and asked me to help. And
you were very instrumental.
Well, you know, it's like I said, it's the right thing to do, and you do the right thing. And it's horrible and unfortunate that, you know, we still have a federal government that won't say the word. We have presidential candidates.
We have hope.
We have hope. You know,
we have gone very far also.
We've gotten very
from
far.
Where we were and where we are today.
Right. And, you know, we need to continue. I mean, I think that's the beauty of the community and the youth movement and getting people politically active. You know, I would say that the role of the activist is to make the public official do better. And certainly the Armenian grassroots on a national level is affecting public policy state by state and on a national level. And I'm optimistic that in Washington we'll finally hear the message and do the right thing. Again, locally, we're blessed that Adam Schiff has been a very strong voice for Armenian recognition. And, you know, Adam is a good friend of yours, a good friend of mine, and, you know, makes us all proud that he is an unwavering supporter of genocide recognition.
And I know that when you get to state senate, you will do the same.
Absolutely.
With that being said, let's talk a little bit about your endorsements because they're very, very recommendable. And so it's an honor to say majority of them. And I was trying to read all of them, and there were so many, so I thought you would help me out here.
Well, I like to say that in politics, the most priceless piece of it are friends. You know, everybody talks about fundraising, everybody talks about, you know, all kinds of pieces of the political dynamic, but there's no substitute for friends. And Adam Schiff being one of them, I'm honored that Congressman Schiff has endorsed me for the state senate. I'm proud that many of the elected officials in Glendale and Burbank, starting with the mayor, Arin Najarian, and the past mayor, Zari Sananian, and Artie Kasakian, and by the way, we have to
Who is also
I was
running.
gonna say, we have to make sure that Artie gets elected to the state assembly.
Who is one of our youngest officials, and now being currently in the city of Glendale, the city clerk. He is also running for assembly.
State assembly, right. It would be our assembly member.
Exactly.
After November. But that's very important. The community needs to rally behind Artie because, A, he's talented. And
he's young, he's ambitious, he's dedicated,
yeah,
he's a hard-working person. He's
got a big heart, and he works hard. And so we certainly need to make sure that Artie wins alongside me in June and November. And
State Senate elections will be in June, let's make sure.
Yeah, the primaries in June.
Primaries in June.
The general elections in November.
Which this year is going to be a major one since we have presidential year.
Yep.
So hopefully, and one thing that I do want to stress how important it is for every one of us to vote who are citizens of the United States. That is our job, it's our duty, it's our obligation, and it is also a privilege, I believe, that we will be able to have that right and our voice. And people say, well, one vote does not make a difference. One vote does make a huge difference.
When I ran for the city council the first time, I lost by 2 votes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I know how, 15 minutes of effort or 3 phone calls or 2 friends who are out of town, and they know who they are, my friends who are out of town who didn't vote, never miss an election. But there were a couples who missed that vote who don't ever miss now. But yes, every vote matters, and one person can make a difference because look what happened in Florida during the presidential election. Look what happened in my race. And so, so I'm pleased that there's a lot of support. The Armenian National Committee Western Region has endorsed me.
Which is the grassroots
which is the largest grassroots organization out there. And I was Legislator of the Year for them several years ago. And they've endorsed me. And Armenia Garpetian has endorsed me.
Glendale Unified School District.
Glendale Unified School District. Nairi Nahabedian has endorsed me. and the entire Glendale Community College Board has endorsed me. So, and I think my wife wants me out of the house. So, so she's endorsed me so I can go to the state senate and bring less chaos.
I don't think that, really.
Bring less chaos and disorder into the house. So, so I'm blessed. There's a lot of good people who are lining up behind me. A lot of institutions. Today we got the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor. Yesterday we got the California Professional Firefighters, CPF. The Pasadena firefighters endorsed as well. The Sierra Club, a lot of great institutions. The Glendale Police Officers Association endorsed.
I was just going to mention that.
Yeah, so that's important. I know near and dear to your heart, ALADS, the deputy
LA
sheriffs,
County sheriffs,
and also the professional peace officers, POPA, which are the sergeants and above. The California police chiefs, the Los Angeles County police chiefs. The UFCW just endorsed today, Unite Here, Teamsters Joint Council 42, the California Small Business Association, and the Association of Commercial Photographers, which is the organization of all the commercials, Super Bowl commercials you love, the organization that's behind the Super Bowl commercials. So
it says a lot about Anthony Portantino, because to have the endorsements that he just mentioned is truly, truly commendable. And I don't think that I'm sure that they weigh out all the other candidates that are running for state senate, and they're really scrutinized, because I know ALADS does not. I know few of them that he mentioned, especially ANCA also, they pick and they choose and they question. And I was just going to ask you that. As far as your endorsements, I'm sure that you had to prove a lot, and I'm sure, what was the process and how hard was it?
Most of the organizations actually have a written questionnaire. It's like going back to school. You have to take a test.
An interview?
You have to do a questionnaire first. Many of them have interviews. Some of them have endorsement recommendations. Tonight, actually, I'm proud to say that the Los Angeles Young Democrats voted tonight in Burbank to endorse me.
Yeah, Burbank.
Yeah, my daughter, who's 24, because once you turn over 35, you can't be a young Democrat anymore. So my daughter was there, and she voted for Dad, which was fun, and I got the endorsement of the Young Democrats. So my wife is right. I'm young at heart. The Young Democrats, she calls it immature. I say young at heart.
It's how old you feel inside.
Exactly. So that was tonight, and so they had an interview process, and all the institutions have interview processes, and obviously the elected officials, you have long-term relationships. That's the other thing. As I said before, you have relationships and friendships, and it's nice to see who respects you when you need their help, and it's usually the folks who you have worked with when you don't need their help. And a lot of politicians just show up and say, I need you today. And it's, well, what did you do in the trenches 10 years ago and 20 years ago that matter? And I think most people know that I roll up my sleeves and I do the work.
That is very true. We are going to talk about March 13th next.
Yes.
March 13th, Anthony Portantino will be having his kickoff campaign, and it will be on March 13th from 1 to 4 p.m. It will be at the headquarters at 232 North Lake Street, I believe.
Lake Avenue.
Lake Avenue in the city of Pasadena. And for those of you that would like to meet him and wish him all the best of luck or ask him any type of questions, please RSVP. And I believe on the screen you will see team@anthonyportantino.com. You could RSVP there, or you could call Anthony Portantino and say hello and wish him all the best of luck.
We're kicking off our campaign. We've got a great office right on Lake, just below the 210 freeway. And we'd love to have you come and learn about the campaign. We're going to be signing up all volunteers. We've got a whole cadre of students from PCC and GCC and USC that have been volunteering on the campaign.
USC?
Yes,
Really?
USC. Yes,
Wow.
we've got a number of students from those three schools that are working and helping. And I've been a visiting fellow at USC since I left the assembly, and that's actually one of the most fun things that I do, is to be on campus and talk to young people who want to make a difference. It refills my batteries and is very exciting to be on campus. So I've been a visiting fellow through the Institute of Politics for the last 3.5 years at USC. So a number of those students are coming. We have a formal internship program where you can actually get credit to work on the campaign.
Wonderful.
And so all those details will be available on March 13th. We're going to have the firefighters are going to be grilling hot dogs and hamburgers in the parking lot. And we're going to have a
So
nice
it's going to be a fun event.
It's going to be a big, fun rally on March 13th, 232 North Lake Avenue in Pasadena. This is a campaign that's on a very positive momentum. Every day it gets better and better. I get to hang out with you and
That's
talk
true.
about issues that I care about, and we're just going to keep working hard.
On March 13th, we would love to have you there. And also in June, the primaries. Could you explain a little bit if they're receiving anything? Could we talk a little bit about that really fast?
Yeah, June is the primary, and the top 2 vote getters move on into the November election. And you'll be getting mail and phone calls and door knockers, and everybody's going to be out there. And again, that's where we sign up the volunteers. So if you want to get active in the campaign, email team@anthonyportantino.com or show up on March 13th. But now it's going to be a robust campaign. There's 1 million people in this district, many, many communities across the foothills. So first step is the first week of June is the primary, and then November is the general election. There's that little presidential election that's at the same time going on. So there's going to be a lot of interest in the political process over the next half year. And, I think we're going to do our best and work hard.
I would like to stress one thing, that when you are looking for a candidate for a state senate, regardless of who it is and what nationality they are, you would want to pick somebody that is going to be a leader, someone that is going to represent you. And we are out of time. But Anthony Portantino, state senate for the state of California. Don't forget, March 13th. Thank you so much for being on my show, Anthony.
Thanks, Louise.
Best of luck. And thank you for watching Lights on LA, and have a very nice evening. Good night.